What's up, Jets fans? Friday, September 8th, a flight plan Friday. It's been a long time since Johnny and I been together on the podcast. We got an unbelievable guest tonight. We got Joe Cat from the Jets Turbulence podcast. Joe, how you doing?
How are you? Thanks for having me, boys.
Oh, man, thank you for being here. Football, live, in action last night. A whole slate of games 2 days from now, but more importantly, 3 days from now. That's when it all begins, right?
Yeah.
Who is excited? I can look at Johnny Jets. Look at the excitement on that man's face. Look at that. Look at that.
Hello, Jets universe.
Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm forgetting the introduction. And reporting from Jets universe, Johnny Jets. Hello, Jets universe. By the way, Joe, that's our introduction. It's been mandated. It's contracted that I have to say that to Airborne, Attache, Johnny Jets every time.
That's fine.
From somewhere in Jets universe.
I love it.
Again, thank you for joining us. We've got a ridiculous amount to cover. But when we get somebody new on, it's always fun, obviously, to jump right into the Jets. But, man, we got to hear a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Of course. Well, my name is...
Introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. I'm Joe Cat. I am one of the hosts of Jets Turbulence podcast. And we started the podcast late October of last year, so right before the Jaguar game. And me and my co-host Dan were calling into Tyson's show, Let's Talk Jets, and we were backstage, and turned out we were, he's like, oh, I live over here, and I'm over here. And I was like, you know what? Like, we both came in there to that show, and we were like, you know what? We want to do something different with this podcast. Like, we just want to be two idiots that rag on the Jets, but also love them. Like, like the Jets are like our alcoholic brother-in-law, right? Like, we love him, but he's never going to clean up his act. You know what I mean? But we keep taking him back. So
right, we take him to rehab, we take him back. We take him to rehab,
right,
back.
Right.
But we love him, right? I mean,
that's it.
And by the way, a friendly, awesome drunk, right? Not one of those mean guys that you're like, I can't have him around the family.
He's great. He knows when not to drive.
Exactly. And Johnny, well, by the way, it only took 3 minutes before we lost Johnny. He's back on the feed here. Johnny, can you hear us? Are you there? Only moderately frozen. That's actually pretty good for him. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully his Wi-Fi kicks in a little bit more. All right, a little bit more about you, by the way. I love this. That's a good start to the background. A great place. So you came in. By the way, we started. We were a couple weeks into the season last year as well. I think it was November 10th or November.
I hear most of what you're saying here in Jets universe. Hello, Jets universe. This is our year.
There we go. All right, we'll take that. But you guys obviously started very late in the season, right before that Jaguars game. We were pretty much in that game, out of the playoffs when that came to be. But like you said, you were calling Tyson. But what about you? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I do this for a hobby because we love the Jets. But besides me, I'm 34. I got 2 kids. That tell me that my team sucks every Sunday.
Your team? Wait a second. So they refuse to follow suit? They know not? Jets?
Yes, which I've told them multiple times. Do not pick this team. Like I don't want them to live the life that I live with my dad. Like my dad begged me not to be a Jet fan.
You're a better father than me because I'm ingraining into all 3 of my children.
No, you can't. You can't. No, you tell them to pick whoever's cool right now, and whoever, like the Steelers, or like somebody.
Is that who they're following? Are they Steelers fans?
No, they're actually Jaguar fans, the same as my wife. My wife is a Jaguar fan, so we have a running joke on the podcast that most people have given their 2 weeks notice when they quit their job. I'm giving 2 years. So if they don't win with Aaron Rodgers, I'm done. All of this stuff will be burned and thrown in the garbage. This is it. I mean, as Jet fans, we can all look at this roster and we could say, if they don't win it with this roster, like they're never figuring it out.
What is it, by the way? Are you Super Bowl bust or is just
100%?
Okay. So 100%. You're saying it's a 2-year window to hoist that Lombardi Trophy, or Joe Cat's out entirely on the team.
Done.
And then what? You stick around with another team in the NFL at all?
Yeah, no, I would probably just, probably support my wife because at least the Jaguars, everyone says, why would you pick the Jaguars? We have season tickets to Jaguars. So I know it's weird. My wife's family has season tickets. She went down to Florida for college and she just had season tickets. So
she's not even from the Jacksonville area. She just went to college there.
Yeah, she just went to college there. She grew up here in Long Island. But the craziest part is I can actually fly out of Long Island, direct flight, right to Jacksonville, faster than it is for me to drive to MetLife from Long Island. So we have actually gone early in the morning, took an hour and a half flight right to Jacksonville, watched the game, and then flew back that night and went to work Monday morning.
That's unbelievable, man. I love that, by the way.
It's crazy.
That says everything about America right there. That, like, you just, in a nutshell. Look, I'm located in LA, and it's funny because they rebuilt the stadium, right? SoFi Stadium is down pretty close to the airport now, right? So it's not the case. The Coliseum nowhere near when like the Rams are playing and the Raiders there for a long time. They built this gorgeous stadium, SoFi. The whole plan is exactly kind of what you're talking about because it's really not even the local LA whatever. They want those West Coast teams. And the NFC West, they want people up from Arizona. They want people coming in from Vegas. They want flights in from Seattle, San Francisco, all the time. And they're getting it, right? That's the play. And that makes sense. So
100%.
You can jump on and do that.
No, it's and it's crazy. If you type in MetLife in my GPS right now, I'm 24 miles from MetLife, 24 miles from my house to MetLife. And it will take me 3.5 hours. Meanwhile, I could just get on a flight and take a $5 Uber right to the stadium.
How many Jet games did you go to last year at MetLife? How many Jacksonville games did you go to?
I went to the Jets-Jaguar game with my dad, the one in the monsoon. Yeah. That was the first game I took my dad went to in 20 years. So my wife was actually sick, so I didn't want to get rid of the tickets. And my dad was like, within 10 minutes, he was like, "Don't ever ask me to come here again," because it was the Zach Wilson game. So.
Aren't they all quote unquote Zach Wilson game until he's out of the game? Unfortunately, it's a Zach Wilson game.
And it was I was pumped up to see Stravler. I was like, this kid is arguably the worst quarterback I've ever seen. I would take
somehow we were all calling for him. He gets to the game. He threw the worst pass to Uzomah.
You know what? I gotta give him some credit though, because it was a monsoon, right? And he probably was a little bit nervous that Uzomah was that open. He was probably caught off guard. But, I want to see that package. I want to see how he ran for 62 yards. I want to see that package with, a Hardman. I want to see it with, that package was great. And even with Stravler, he's a big dude. And a lot of people give Stravler a lot of crap, right? Because, he's not a quarterback. He doesn't throw. Obviously, he is a CFL quarterback. So he was the third down quarterback. Their third down is like our punting, right? So out of 20 times, he made 19 out of 20 conversions. So when it's 3rd and 2, that's their fourth down. So they think their punt is to go for it every time. So they got it. He got it every time. And he's a big dude. Yeah. I would love to see him on a 3rd and 2. I know it's a crazy take.
No,
I know.
Look, more exciting than Tim Boyle. Let's be honest. I don't think anybody needs to see him at all this year.
I know.
Johnny, how many games did you go to last year?
Went to the Bears game and the Lions game last year.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good too. How many games do you plan on going to this year?
Well, right now I'm. It's funny. A year ago this time, I looked at the Lions tickets and club seats because I go with my kids. Were 60% off, and it was really good. Those same seats for any of the games right now are $800 a pop on the secondary market. What I'm looking at is the Commanders game in December, maybe when it's either snowing or it's raining sideways it was against the Bears last year. And, if the bloom is off the 2023 Jets rose, then I think I can get those tickets for about $5 each.
I mean, the bloom off the rose. Let's not go there just yet. You know what? This is a perfect segue to where I want to go with this. All right, because I want to open up with this. We're gonna, and follow me here, guys, because I promise this is going somewhere, right? Because we have to look forward. We certainly have to look forward. There's a lot to look forward to, right? As a fan base, I think let's be honest about our fan base at the moment. It's nearly all orgasmic excitement is the best way to describe what we got going on right now this offseason. But all right, insert whatever deity that you worship right here. Given right as fans of this franchise to expect the worst. That's who we are, right? I mean, it's decades of this ingrained in us. But I want to put something in perspective here, and I want to ask a couple questions, okay? Because our show, and Johnny knows this, and Joe, you're about to learn, we're all about perspective here. That's a big thing for us. It's got to be about perspective. You know, that's what we're harping in on as fans, as we take this journey, you've got 2 years left. Obviously, I hope you stick with us way after that, but it is about perspective. So let me ask you a few questions. I'll start with this. Where do you rank last season's missing of the playoffs, right? The fact, this meltdown that we had, where do you rank it in epic New York Jet meltdowns of the past?
I would say towards the top. I mean, it was unacceptable. It really was. Like, first of all, I blame that a lot on coaching. I do. And you got to call it what it is. Those last 6 games, they came out flatter than anything. And that's coaching. And if you remember when Rex was about to get fired and they were playing Miami in the last game, that team still ran through a wall for him. And the whole thing with the bunny costumes and everything like that, like, that's all in coaching. It really is. And like, you can't let I love it because I'm a savage, but you can't have your team wearing T-shirts of a backup quarterback. It's unacceptable. The Belichicks don't do that. The Tomlins don't do that. That's where I feel like, especially watching Hard Knocks, I don't get the vibe that this guy is he's not a coach to me. Like, it's the quotes are lame. It's just cheese fest. Like, thank God we have Aaron Rodgers. I don't want any of these guys doing anything. Saleh, you call the defense. Hackett is just as bad as a play caller as his father was. As long as we have Aaron Rodgers, he's the coach. And that's the whole thing. Is like, it seems everything with Saleh seems fake to me. And
we're going to touch on Hard Knocks a lot. We're going to touch on Saleh. And by the way, no, absolutely. Again, this is an organic conversation. Bring it anywhere you want. I'm just kind of corralling it back because I want to stay on message here, on brand for a quick second of the idea of the notion of, hey, what was last season in epic New York Jet meltdowns? I'm going to turn it over to Johnny for a second. Johnny, where are you in last season's quote unquote meltdown? How epic was it? Where do you rank it?
If you can hear me, every time I try to talk, I seem to get silenced. I definitely put it in the top 5. I mean, the strongest argument that Robert Saleh is not a pitiful coach is that it is true, a conspiracy theory, that he deliberately tanked the season. Otherwise, how do you explain, just what happened in the last 8 games when they went 2-6, and they lost their last 6 games? You mentioned the Jacksonville game earlier. They made Evan Ingram look like Kellen Winslow the Elder in that game, the heralded Jets defense, which is supposed to be that great. 2015 was a horrible collapse. It was a 1-game collapse, but it was pretty horrible. There are others, but this is right up there just because they were 6-3, 7-4, and all the dominoes fell such that they had the opportunity to make the playoffs, and they just threw every lousy fish back in the pond.
All right, now I'm going to throw this out there. Where do you rank it in the annals of NFL epic meltdowns? Forget the Jets for a second, just in the history of the NFL. And obviously, it's hard to remember everybody who's ultimately melted down, but like, where are we putting it? I mean, how bad was it really?
I don't think it was that. And when you put it in the perspective of the NFL, I don't think it was that bad because you still have the Patriots losing to the Giants and after being undefeated. You have, you still have the 98 Vikings, which should have won a Super Bowl, that completely melted down 41-0. You still have the Falcons. What's that?
Johnny, go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear.
Johnny, can you hear it? Are you still there, Johnny? Playing around. I think he's playing Pong. So when he's done, he'll get back.
Yeah, 20 the Falcons in the Super Bowl is
By the way, but what you're mentioning are like one-off games. They actually got there, right? I mean, you can go back and think about like that Buffalo game when they were playing the Oilers and like they were up, they were right, the Frank Reich game, they were up 35. A meltdown of like a playoff game, but like here I'm just talking about like, hey, you didn't make the playoffs, right? You were on track to at least get to the offseason. You're talking about a Jets team. We are now the franchise with the longest streak of not making the playoffs, right? This goes on 12 years. Obviously, what happened last year, Woody had seen enough. He pulled the trigger. We've got Rodgers. All of it. We know the rest of the story. But I'm just trying to, again, put it in perspective, like how bad was this meltdown, right? Like not just for the Jets, but in the annals of the NFL not making the playoffs.
I don't think it was that bad because we didn't expect it. We didn't expect them to be 7-4. But, you also got to put it in perspective, too. We played a bunch of crap quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, was our defense overrated? Maybe. I mean, you didn't play Russell Wilson. You played Brett Rippon. Mm-hmm. You didn't play Tua. You played Skylar Thompson twice and knocked Teddy Bridgewater out.
Yeah, you didn't even play Bridgewater. Yeah.
Right. You didn't play Justin Fields.
Yep.
Right. I mean, they played crap quarterbacks. They played a broken down Green Bay team. They played it. I mean, sometimes Jet fans kind of, all right, our defense is amazing. Is it? Because the 7 wins that we had, we played kind of crap teams and not starters. You know what I mean?
Johnny, can you hear me? Are you back with us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Our defense is so great. Kenneth Walker III is still running out in Seattle. They made Evan Ingram, the Jaguars, look like Kellen Winslow the Elder, all throughout that 19-3 disaster. Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets defense is solid, but it's a quitting team. When it feels like it's not going the game's not going its way, they take plays off, they get frustrated. And with the level of competition this year, with the expectations that the Jets have, and with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback, the thing that's going to be under the greatest spotlight, the defense in game situations, is the head coach's in-game management and decisions. And when the defense gets frustrated in a game with Robert Saleh's moves or non-moves, they're going to quit.
We're already going that direction. But here's where I was going with this and why I started with this perspective in this line of questioning, because I'm a sneaky bastard. I want to bring this in, right? We talk about the Jets meltdown. We talk about the annals of NFL history meltdown, whatever it may be. And it felt so painful at the time. And obviously so many months have gone by. A lot of that sting has gone away because of what this offseason has brought, all the optimism and all of that. But you know something? There was another team out there in just last year's NFL in 2022 that had it worse than us, that melted down even worse than us. You guys know who I'm talking about?
The Buffalo Bills.
Nope, not the Buffalo Bills. All right. There's another team with over 50 years in this league. They've never won a Super Bowl. Not one. We've got one, right?
Oh, the Vikings.
What's that?
The Vikings?
Nope, not the Vikings either. This team started 0-2 last year. Then they won 5 in a row. Then they lost a nail biter to the eventual Super Bowl champions. Then they won 3 more in a row right after that and lost their final 7 games, missed the playoffs. Who am I talking about?
Isn't the Steelers?
Not them either. But I love it because this kind of proves who we are as Jets fans. It's all about the Jets, Jets, this painful memory and all of that. The Tennessee Titans, my friends, the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans, over 50 years in this league. They've been in the Super Bowl once. They lost that, by a stretch, right? They lost that, all that. But that happened last year. People forget that because, again, it's all about the Jets and the media and the hype and this. And we're always so downtrodden and all of that. And I want us to get rid of that feeling, right? Yeah. It's not just all about us. Like, again, that meltdown, in my opinion, is worse than what we went through because they started 0-2, right? And they won basically. They went 8-1 and lost this insane nail biter when they had no chance of even being in the game with the Chiefs at the time, and they lost it and all of that, and then lost their last 7 the way that they did. Right, it was probably worse than what we went through ultimately because, I mean, they had an insane slew of injuries. They fired the GM midseason and all of that. But again, it's not just all this just happens to the Jets. It happens to teams all the time. The difference is that they're a better culture, right, for the long haul of what this is, and we are not. But all of a sudden, are we changing the culture? Do we really feel it? Because that's all we ever talk about, right? That's all that's going to matter in this team. Joe, do you think we're changing this culture? Have you seen it?
I think Aaron Rodgers is changing the culture. I think just by having him in the building is changing the culture. I think, but this has to work out the 2 years. That's the only way that this kind of move is something that changes. Everyone has this kind of notion that Rodgers is going to play 2 to 3 years, and then the Jets are going to give Zach Wilson this 1-year prove-it deal. Listen, if they don't win it with Aaron Rodgers the next 2 years, this regime is gone.
2 years is a lifetime in the NFL. Who the hell knows where at?
Right, but I'm saying, he's got 2 years left. Zach Wilson's got 2 years left on his deal. If they don't win it with Rodgers, this regime's gone, whether or not you like it or not. And a new regime's not going to come in and be like, oh, well, I'm going to pay
this coaching regime is gone. I don't know if Douglas is gone.
I don't know if Douglas is gone. Definitely the coaching. But you can't even think that far ahead. I think that it has to be taken one game at a time. I think this team, first of all, the AFC is just a whole nother league to me. It's the NFC is like the minor league to me. and the AFC is like where the big boys play. And last night you saw that the Chiefs are human. They are human. They could be beat. But the one thing you noticed that entire game last night was the coach of the Lions, Dan Campbell. That's the code. That's what Saleh, I feel, doesn't have. Is like you saw him on the sideline. That guy was hoarse at the end of that game. Like that's the kind of thing you saw them on Hard Knocks the year before, and you're like, dude, this guy, like, look at his coaching staff, right? Like Aaron Glenn, great Jet, Mark Brunell, quarterback coach, all guys that have played semi in the last decade of the current NFL to help these guys. You know, and I think the culture is changing for the Jets strictly because of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy takes the biggest pay cut in the history of NFL to play with us. Like, that's like, when you read that, you're like, he's proven everything that we've ever heard of him wrong. And that's the most amazing part. And you see the other guys, they want to block for him. They want to play for him. They listen to every single thing that this hippie says. You know, like he could be tripping on ayahuasca. They're like this. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's right.
I think they think it's cool. I honestly think, and I've talked about this before, I think the players, like, we all joked about it, or media joked about going on a darkness retreat, and everybody else looking around the league. These players are like, yo, that's badass.
Yeah, I would love to go to darkness retreat.
I mean,
you've been married, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, the dude's tough. And you saw it with the Jihad War. Like, that was the best part, right, of Knox. You talk about culture shit. Like, a guy like that who came in, had that, like, yo, don't poke the bear. I mean, you want to. I mean, he's a sicko, right? I mean, you want your quarterback to be a psycho. Like, he's so soft and talkative, and like,
nope.
You know, like he's bringing around, and then you see him on the field, and he's just an absolute killer. Johnny, what do you think, man? Are you seeing the culture shift? Are you feeling it at all, or is this all just another, like, this is all, again, you're waiting for the bloom to come off the rose, or are we on our way to this big culture shift?
Well, I think that the culture will change when Robert Saleh demonstrates in games that he can't coach, that if Aaron Rodgers walks into Woody Johnson's office and says, you know, this guy cannot be the head coach next year, then there's a chance for the culture to change and for the Jets to win in 2024. You know, then this whole line of propaganda from One Jets Drive, even spoken by Robert Saleh himself. He said that the best teams coach themselves. So they're setting up this construct, which is a fallacy, that a football team doesn't need a head coach. Right. So whether they win or lose or whatever, it has nothing to do with Robert Saleh, so he can't be judged. Now, what's been happening with this Hard Knocks and all of this featuring where Robert Saleh is forced to actually speak, he comes off more and more like a simpleton, and also kind of like a disagreeable person, too, and also somewhat of a duplicitous person. So, you know, if he's teaching the team and coaching the team and he can't do it, then that's going to translate itself onto the football field. Yes. Is he probably an adequate defensive coordinator? Probably. Maybe he isn't, but let's say he is. There are hundreds of examples of offensive or defensive coordinators who are great, who were terrible head coaches. Robert Saleh is one. Now, Aaron Rodgers really controls the team. He has more power than Robert Saleh. But if Aaron Rodgers doesn't call for Robert Saleh to be fired, even if the Jets miss the playoffs this year, you have to remember Woody Johnson gave Todd Bowles 4 years. In Todd Bowles' final 3 years, he went 14-34. So Robert Saleh is not going to go unless a decision maker like Aaron Rodgers says, I've had enough. I have 1 year left. You've got to get me a real head coach.
I like it. Well, look, I love all those points from both of you guys. You know, I'll say this about the culture, though. Even outside of the coach, even outside of Saleh, a lot of that starts with what goes on in that locker room, right? And as much of it has to do with the coach, a lot of it is what Douglas has brought. And one big thing that really came to mind the other day was McGovern standing in front of the microphone, and he was like, hey, the apples are gone, the cancer is gone, right? Who's he talking about, right? He's just talking about anyone who's mouthed off at all, who's not a team player. I mean, you could bring up Jamal Adams, you could bring up Elijah Moore, but I think it's smart to just cut bait, get rid of that. I mean, everybody has a vibe. You need that positive vibe going through more than anything else, and just buying in, and you can't have.
Can I quote what Connor McGovern said in?
What's that?
Can I quote what Connor McGovern said in 2020?
I'm listening.
He said, the Jets have what it takes to win the Super Bowl. Not in 2023, in 2020.
How do we know? How do we know he wasn't talking about 2023? All right, let's move on for a second. DJ Reed said something.
How could all those apples be bad apples if we thought they were going to win the Super Bowl that year?
DJ Reed, well, I mean, I get it, but, you know, it's one thing to have like the optimism that he was when he came up there and he was excited to join the team. It's another thing to say like, yo, this is real. And I think that there's something to be said about it's
he's
real.
Talking about Elijah Moore.
Well, yeah, he was for sure. But maybe it shifted. Maybe it hasn't yet, but it's going in the right direction. We could probably all agree on that. DJ Reed, quote, I think we have the potential to be the best defense in the NFL. And honestly, I think we can be historical. Not just the best defense in the league, but I think we can have a historical defense like the 85-86 Bears, like the Legion of Boom in 2013. Now, Joe, on Jets Turbulence Twitter, and I don't know if it was you or maybe your co-host. It was, okay, so you put that up there and you were like, yo, 64 turnovers, pal. What are you smoking?
Listen, I get where he was coming from, but like, come on, dude. Like, you had one interception last year. You got one turnover, and your defense couldn't crack 25 turnovers. Meanwhile, you're talking about a defense that had 64 turnovers, including the playoffs. Like, just the regular season, they had 54. And they're not even close. Not even close to that. Like, you know, and like, I get you want to set goals, right? I get you want to – all you have to say – like, it's just ridiculous. When I read that, I'm like, is this guy serious? Like, you know, like, come on, dude. 85 Bears, maybe I'll give you like 2002 Ravens, like, but not even that.
Who were pretty good and had Ed Reed on that team. But
right,
DJ Reed, do you think he's a Pro Bowler or not a Pro Bowler? Should he have been in that game last year?
Yes, I think he's a Pro Bowler. I think we have the best cornerback duo in the NFL.
All right, so at least he's coming from a pedestal where he may be allowed to at least say a little something. Johnny, do you think he should have been in the Pro Bowl last year? I don't know if you can hear Johnny. Can you hear him?
I think along with the there you go.
Let's take a closer look. All right,
wow,
here we've got a couple of guys and a little deeper look into their numbers, right? I mean, obviously the top, Sauce and Surtain, right, are the two best in the league, and they're unquestionable. I mean, their numbers are ridiculous across the board there. Below them, just a tier below, you go Ramsey and Jair Alexander, but they're NFC, right? And then a couple of the guys that I also didn't list all the way down to, and these are your Pro Bowlers, Reed just on the outside. But the two guys that are interesting right there at the bottom, Xavier Howard, right, and Marlon Humphrey, the AFC guys who were picked over Reed. I mean, you look at those numbers and you're like, why? Especially Xavier, right? I mean, across the board, I mean, other than his comp percentage being below 60 and Reed's being above 60, he played 2 less games. But, you know, the numbers are pretty close on you know, targets completion percentage there and all of that. But Reed's better across the board in all of that. So, you know, a little biased because Sauce was all pro, and it's hard to say like, well, fine, give it to Sauce and bring Reed on there. But Reed should have been a Pro Bowler last year. And to your point, probably the best duo in the league. But like, can they keep that up? Now, if he's going to make this claim, like, who else are we really looking at, right? Like, what else? I mean, the D-line's insane. But to your point, like, got to have turnovers. You got to get multi-digit sacks, multi-digit turnovers, and blow up the backfield in that respect. Linebackers, I mean, what do we think? You know, CJ's, you know, in his 30s for sure. And, you know, the other guys filling that position, Quincy and Sherwood and Chaz Surratt, like, are they getting it done?
Well, the whole thing, too, is with, like, I want Sauce to travel a lot more. I don't like the idea of Sauce being on Gabe Davis Monday night. I don't like that at all. Like, Sauce, you could see, predominantly plays one side. He's always playing either the left side or the right side, whatever side you like to say it is.
Yeah.
But
well, by the way, and I think more of that has to do with DJ than it does with Sauce. Because
right.
If you look at DJ's numbers on one side of the field, they're like it's total opposite, man. It's polar opposite.
Right.
Like, I think on the right side of the field, he's actually phenomenal, and it's like you just got to keep him there and let him do his thing because
right,
and that's Pro Bowl numbers if you keep him there.
That's the thing, but like I feel more confident with Sauce on Stephon Diggs than on Gabe Davis. Like, there's something that they got to. I mean, I wish Sauce would be a little bit more. Maybe they could drop down a safety because I'm not confident, like you said, in the linebacker play. I think we're going to get tore up across the middle. Unless maybe they could drop, you know, because Quincy Williams is good, but he's not that good.
He's boom or bust, man, right? He's going to hit you and he's going to make, I mean, like, you're not going to want to get up after a few of those.
That's
but
it. Either,
you know,
he runs in there, he's either hitting you and getting you, or he's flying right by you and missing. There's no in between there. And Jamie and Sherwood is self-proclaimed at the bottom. Right. So he told you everything you needed to know right there
Sure.
in that interview.
A lot of this is going to come down to Tony Adams because of how bad the safety play was in the first half of the year last year, right? This all comes down to like, hey, Whitehead's going into his more natural position, moves down the box. Can he make the stops that he needs to? When he was there last year, he looked very good. When he was out of position, and Joyner was a mess. I mean, Joyner was really like, you talk about the weakest link. It wasn't even a link. Like, I don't even consider him a chain.
Terrible.
Like, what was he doing?
Terrible.
Right? So, how good is Tony Adams? How good could he be? Undrafted free agent all of a sudden steps in. Like, he just this absolute unicorn? Maybe. But if he is, this defense, who was number 4 on paper last year, maybe they can be better.
Well, that's the thing with this defense, too, is that, we're always so worried, the defense isn't going to have to play 60 minutes this year. That's the whole thing that's crazy about it. Like, people are, the reason why the defense gave up a lot, too, besides the coaching, was that they were freaking exhausted. They were on the game, and they were playing 56 minutes a game. And now you have a guy that can go down the field with clock management. The only thing that I'm not worried about the defense at all. Even if we are a little bit weak in the linebacker, I'm not worried about it at all. I think Ulbricht's got, the rotations great. It's like a fresh hockey line. I love that.
Yeah.
They have complete animals up front. I mean, Michael Clemens, as scary as he looks and intimidating as it looks, he needs to actually come out this year. Jermaine Johnson needs to come out this year. Bryce Huff and McDonald, I think, should be out there in majority on each side because those two guys are game wreckers, and they need to be getting more snaps, I think.
Well, Huff's a little bit of a liability in the run game, but unreal. I mean, like, numbers are just absurd, obviously, coming off, especially on the third down and the pressure he's putting. So it's like, we'll take that every time. But also McDonald, I mean, going back and watching with you on Tyson, and talking to him, it was interesting, you guys going over the draft. I mean, are you happy with what we did? Because a lot of what you were talking about was maybe getting somebody offensive, getting more.
I wanted them to take 6 offensive linemen.
Yeah. Are you with McDonald or not? Now, I mean, now that you've seen him, or are you still suspect that we even needed him?
No, I'm still suspect of it. I think that our defensive line was fine. I mean, they love edge rushers, which you can't have enough of them. But the whole thing is, thank you, Vinny. It's the whole thing is, I wanted them with 6 picks to take 6 offensive linemen. I wanted them because they knew they were going through this whole Rodgers thing right after the Super Bowl. And for all the flowers we give Joe Douglas, he's dropped the ball in the offensive line. He really has. You have to just call it what it is. If you're going after a 40-year-old quarterback February 17th of 2023, they should have been building a wall for this guy. They should have been, you can't tell me, and people say, oh, well, who was available? You can't tell me you couldn't find 5 animals. There's somebody in the XFL. There's somebody coming out of college that they didn't see tape on.
We tried to get Orlando Brown. Johnny, what do you think? Where you, Johnny, can you hear us? Are you with us again?
Yeah, I can hear you. I mean, obviously, Joe Douglas whiffed with Mekhi Becton, and he could have gotten Tristan Wirfs, and then he took Zach Wilson over Penei Sewell. Aaron, Crew Chief, I should say, when we talked about the 2022 draft, I was in favor of getting either Evan Neal or Ike Ekwonu, and the thought was, and articulated on this podcast, was this guy Sauce Gardner better be as advertised to validate not taking one of those 2 tackles, and he is that great. But nevertheless, they didn't trade up to get Tyler Linderbaum, who was taken 1 pick ahead of Jermaine Johnson. So they didn't feel that there was a priority there to get that all-world center. In fact, at this point, they basically traded Tyler Linderbaum and Brian Branch for Jermaine Johnson and Joe Tippmann. So which is a stronger team. I don't think that Joe Douglas, I don't think that Woody Johnson prioritizes offensive linemen. They can rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic all they want. Dwayne Brown is Ryan Khalil. Thank you. It's another senior moment. I've been at this so long. So something is going to go wrong with this offensive line. I don't know if you've talked about the running backs in my absence, but you can throw in Elijah Vera Tucker. He's coming back from an injury. Breece Hall is coming back from an injury. So whether this running game is going to be there, I know Aaron Rodgers is great with the play action and all that sort of stuff, and getting the ball into tight windows and things like that. But it comes right down to it. he can't run around. He's almost 40, and he can get the ball away quickly. But if this line is collapsing, and it's going to at certain points of the season, he's going to get hit. He's going to get killed.
By the way, Mekhi Becton out with an, I don't know if you guys saw, out with an illness today. Let's hope.
It's always something with this guy.
With this guy, really, right? I mean, but like, are we setting up the excuses already? I didn't feel well enough. I wasn't 100%. I've got. Can you imagine if it's COVID? Can you imagine if he can't go Monday night?
You know what? If it's COVID, and he's gonna pull through. He's gonna pull through. Then nobody should be afraid, because that guy's 400 pounds. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like what? You know what I
mean?
Right.
He's a walking advertisement for like, you're going to be okay.
Right. Like if that guy makes it, you're good. Like, but it's our left hand. The thing that's laughable about our offensive line is that our right hand side of the line was our last year's left hand, or the year before his left side. So all they're doing is just shifting. Basically, it's AVT and a bunch of either old dudes or a bunch of maybes. And that's
we've talked about this before. This whole line, and is a name we didn't mention, is really predicated. Like, it's all going to be based on Lakin. Does this guy show up this year? Right? Because AVT is going to do his thing, and he's going to get stronger and better throughout the year. Okay, Mekhi is the right guy to be playing right tackle as long as he can show you that he can stay on the field. He really is. He does have that talent, and I don't care if he's on the left or right, whatever it may be.
No, he's great when he's healthy.
Again, if he holds up, but you kind of expect him to, because he's a warrior beyond. And even if he's playing at 80%, he's a warrior beyond. Again, McGovern is the ultimate C-, B- guy. We talked about that a few times. He really is. And Tippmann, maybe he takes over at some point halfway through the year and he's ready and he's got the ability. He'll be fine in that position. How good he can be. Yeah. Can he show up? Can he not take plays off? Can he play cohesively with the center and Dwayne Brown, all-world Dwayne Brown right next to him? Let's hope so.
I mean, Mekhi Becton showing up and playing well. It's almost like the final tour of the Grateful Dead as to how Jerry Garcia will perform. It's like you can get him on a good night and he's the best in the world, or you can get him and he's playing like he's Mel from Alice's Diner. But
he held up all preseason and he won that job. They didn't give it to him.
They gave him so many days off. And by the way, he's not 400 pounds now.
He's like 368.
Tweeting out all year. He's really more like Tony Gonzalez at this point. He should be playing like an H-back position. He's really not even big enough to be
totally svelte. That Mekhi is just svelte top to bottom.
Well, the thing with Mekhi Becton, we were Jets Turbulence was his first block in 2 years. And so I don't know if you remember that a couple months ago. He retweeted us, and all of a sudden, like, my phone was going off, and like all I said was like, "Hey man, do you think you can like get out of the bathroom and like stop taking selfies and maybe go practice with the fellas?" That's all I said. I didn't say like, "Hey, fat ass." I didn't say anything like that. Right. I was just like, "Hey, you think you're gonna play? You gonna practice soon? And what's going on? What's with these selfies?" So then every day for a week, I went into Lowe's and took a picture of like different tile, and I tweeted at him, and I was like, "Hey, like I'm redoing my bathroom. Like, what you've been in the bathroom so much? Like, what do you think I should do for this tile? It's on sale. Like, what do you think?" Right. And then all of a sudden he like retweeted us, and my phone is blowing up, and I'm at work, and Dan, my co-host, is calling me. He's like, "Dude, what did you do?" And I'm like, "I didn't." All I asked him was, "What kind of tile should I use for my bathroom?" And then all of a sudden he like put our name out there, and it was like within an hour, it was like 30,000 views. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I had all these people DMing me, "You're a hater," and everything. I was like, dude, I was just making a joke. Like,
of course.
Our
fan base is so touchy. Johnny, if you want to learn how to agitate correctly, take a write this down. Joe Cat's got it on lock. All right, let me move on to something else. I want to talk about something. There's one guy, and you haven't really heard his name at all in training camp, and I happen to think this is a good thing. You saw him on the last episode of Hard Knocks, finally wearing a pink hat, but I hadn't heard his name. Nothing to talk about. And there's a big thing. And Zach Rosenblatt, I think he did an awesome job. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's one of the beat writers for The Athletic. He covers the Jets. And he did a great job on a tweet a couple of weeks ago where he put out this. He put out the targets. I've been tracking every Aaron Rodgers throw in 11 and 11s during practice, right, including who he throws to. Here's my unofficial tally for all of camp. Regardless of what Rodgers did, the name that jumps out to me here is fourth down on the list. And here's a guy who's about to be a much bigger part of this offense
Thank
because
you.
Corey Davis is gone.
Thank you. I've been saying that for months. As soon
You
as
really
they
have.
got,
Okay, yeah.
As soon as they got the cobbler, I said it from the very beginning. I said, listen, Randall Cobb can still play. He's 32. He's 2 years younger than me. Everyone makes it seem like he's,
No,
80
hold on a
years
second.
old.
I'm not talking about Randall Cobb.
Oh, you said 4
I'm
down.
talking fourth down on the list. Who's 4 down there?
Oh, Tyler Conklin.
Tyler Conklin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, Cobb we know is already going to be. I thought he was going to be a
I'm
bigger part
sorry.
of this. Bigger part of this
I didn't see Garrett Wilson.
But I'm saying this is a good thing. First of all, look at his targets and catches compared to a lot of the other guys. Besides Carter, which is a sizable, high percentage. This is huge. Conklin's vertical threat way more than people know.
Yeah.
Right. Rodgers loves his tight end, at least if he can trust one tight end.
Yep.
And Davis is gone, and all these guys had to move up one spot, Cobb included. Right.
Yep.
But look how high he is in the targets. Again, you didn't hear anything about this guy in camp. Nothing.
No.
You didn't see anything on him on Hard Knocks.
No.
Right? Everybody's talking about everybody else, but not him. Even Uzama got a lot of play and a lot of discussion.
He's more blocking, though.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing about this guy. And watch him put up 70, 80 catches this year. Watch him put up 800 yards and 6 to 8 touchdowns.
He just can't drop the ball. That's his problem. He drops the ball a lot. He fumbles after getting hit a lot. I still think the one person that's going to have a breakout season is Long Island's own Jeremy Ruckert, which I think is phenomenal. I think he's phenomenal. I've seen him play because he played 5 minutes from where I live. That kid is an animal. And
absolutely,
you saw it in the last game of the Miami game. He was like, you saw him laying guys out, and you're like, all right, this kid should have been playing 6 weeks ago. Same thing with Garrett Wilson last year, when you're like, why isn't Garrett Wilson playing the first 3 games? So remember when the first 3 games?
I mean, by the way, going back to just bad coaching decisions, and that's an answer. I mean, Johnny, what do you think? I mean, are you as high on Conklin as I am?
Look, I'm sure there are players on the Jets that are going to have decent years, and some are going to have great years, and it all comes down to. I think the Jets are going to end up something like 10-7. They'll lose the wild card game on the road, and we'll start this all again in 2024 with the same deal. I don't think it means anything. Maybe they'll get a contract for another team.
I think it's just the schedule. I think we're going to see exactly where this team is going to be after the first 6 games. I mean, you got to finish those first 6 games. Worst case scenario, 3-3. You cannot come out of those first 6 games 2-4. You can't.
No, you definitely. But I want to stay on one thing here. I want to, if I may, about the tight ends, because again, they have not been a big part of our offense for way too long. Not all. You got to go back to basically Dustin Keller. Before we can really even think about something. By the way, I'm an Indiana University graduate. He went to Purdue. Never loved him because of that, but at the same time, of course, did love him. He's a Jet.
There you go.
But there's another name on here that jumps at me. All right. And he's currently on the injured reserve list. Now, I love Ruckert, and I'm agreeing with you. I think that there's a huge chance he becomes somebody big. But all the way down at that list, there's a name that he's currently on IR, short-term IR. We've never really spoken about him. I mean, and I know I'm going deep here on Kenny Yeboah. All right. But follow me here for a second. Let's talk about this kid. All right. For whatever reason, he chose to forego his senior year, 2021. He's out of Mississippi. Okay, so he entered the 2021 draft, and he went unsigned. Didn't go undrafted. Right? Nobody drafted him. He didn't even go back for his senior year. Had an amazing year at Mississippi. Didn't go drafted. We signed him as an undrafted free agent. Cut him, of course, when the 53 came down that year. Put him on the practice squad. He saw a little bit of NFL action, but didn't catch a pass that year. We brought him back in 2022. Cut him again. Right. Put him on the practice squad again. He saw a very little bit of action in one game against the Buccaneers. Finally had 2 catches from the aforementioned Zach Wilson. And here we go. Brought him back again this year, the 3rd year. But guess what? We didn't cut him. I don't know if a lot of people know. Did you know that? Did you know he made the initial 53?
Kenny Yeboah?
Yeah, of course. So right. But let's be honest about why he did. I don't think, and he probably knew he wasn't sticking, because that was August 29th when the cut day was. August 30th, he goes on short-term IR. We're playing roster gymnastics. We needed spots. Thomas Morstead's coming back. We cut him for his reasons, right? He was probably Yeboah's spot. What do we think happens with this guy? It's an interesting thought process, and I'm asking this because let's just go down the list, right? Obviously, you've got Conklin and Uzama. Uzama's been talked about as trade bait for quite some time. Ruckert, we're all expecting him at some point to slip into the number 2, and he's going to be a factor at some point. Zach Gunn's got drafted, who I know you love, but he was a 7th rounder. He's unbelievable. Like,
how do you know I love him?
Because you said so on Rush's kind. I heard that too when you were talking about the draft. But it's
very
like,
good.
But like he is, but he's a year away from being 6 years away. So like he's a specimen for sure. But like, great, he's on the practice squad. He shouldn't probably see the field this year.
He's a project.
Yeah, he's a total project. But is there even room for I mean, like, what happens when he comes back from the IR? Is Yeboah going to take somebody's spot again? Do we carry 4 tight ends? Are we playing 12 and 13 personnel this year? Does he go back to Prescott and take somebody else's spot this year?
I think he's just a depth guy. I think he's just because you gotta they're planning. You could see who they're putting on the practice squad. You can see exactly what they're doing. They don't want to go through what happened to them last year with the injuries, with the offensive line.
But do you think he just goes back to the practice squad and somebody who's on there currently, one of the 16s there, is gone and he just takes it?
I think so. I think because you saw it all through camp. You saw a guy like Ruckert all over their Instagram. You saw him on Hard Knocks making catches. You see that this is the main 3.
Well, look, there's another name on this IR when he comes off, and it's just one game. You got to assume he's going to be on because you need the cornerback depth. And I don't see him put on this. And I don't even see him getting through the practice squad. I think somebody else will pick him up on waivers. He's got too much experience, and he is that good. It's Eccles, right?
Yeah.
So he's got to take up. So now, if you're going to think Yeboah, that's 2 spots. Who are they going to lose, right? Are you just going to suddenly this great story of the 2 undrafted wide receivers and lose one of them?
I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think, Johnny? What do you think? What do you think happened? Does it even matter? Am I going way too deep on Kenny Yeboah here, or are you in on this?
I mean, look, you're entitled to talk about whatever you want to, man. I mean, to me, it comes down to the head coach. The guy's a buffoon. He's way in over his head. The Jets have, the propaganda wing of One Jets Drive is the most productive and best line of business of all of Woody Johnson's business lines, and all of their salaries should be trebled. The way they've set it up, at the 2-6, the 2-8, the 0-6 finish of the Jets last year was all because of Zach Wilson, right? And now we've replaced Zach Wilson with Aaron Rodgers. So obviously this team is going to be the Super Bowl champion or something close to it. And also they've set up this construct where the coach isn't even actually coaching the team. The best teams, they coach themselves, said Robert Saleh, right? So he's Teflon. It's, this guy, he's going to be facing better competition, right? There's a stronger schedule, and if they do make the playoffs, and if they, I don't think any Robert Saleh head coach team will ever win a playoff game. I think he's like Bruce Coslett at best, Todd Bowles at worst. But, if he's getting into that level of division round, the championship game, he's going to be facing on the other sideline a real head coach. He's going to get outsmarted. He got outsmarted by Dan Campbell last year. He got outsmarted by Bill Belichick twice last year, and on and on and on. He outsmarts himself because he's not smart. Okay, so all of these things, again, it's like, what do I think about Kenny Yeboah? I mean, if he comes out and he does well, God bless him. I don't think it matters, other than he might get a tryout for another team and have a career there, maybe win a championship. But, you start. I put forth the conspiracy theory when Aaron Rodgers, when they first announced the schedule and we saw what the first 6 or 7 games, including the Giants game, was for the Jets this year. I said, okay, so the Jets Aaron Rodgers, he's gonna get hurt in the first day of OTAs. They're gonna put him on the IR. The Jets are gonna decide that it's acceptable losses for them to go 2-4 with Zach Wilson, because the best they're gonna go with Aaron Rodgers is 3-3 anyway, and then he'll miss the first 7 games. They'll keep the first round pick in 2024. It's a little late for that to happen at this point. Maybe the Jets aren't even smart enough to do that. But the bottom line is that Robert Saleh has to make decisions. He's not going to be in blowouts. He's not going to blow out any team except a really bad one, and he's not going to be blown out probably this year. Okay, there's going to be close games. The magnifying glass is going to be on his in-game coaching decisions, and he's going to fail miserably because he's not competent to do it.
Let me stop you right there. Joe, is he going to fail miserably? Do you feel the incompetence seeping through?
Well, I like to call myself a negative Jet fan, but now listen, side note, I texted my dad a picture of the new 80s helmet, which is just the $2 sticker on the thing, which I've been saying for years, just change the sticker and we're good. These uniforms are good. Everything's fine. Just change the sticker. I sent it to my dad that they post on their Instagram where it was just a helmet in the grass. And my dad writes back, "Is that Aaron Rodgers in the dirt?" And I go, like, listen, it takes like, I'm in the middle here. I'm in the middle. There's a part of me that's like, all right, this is going to be different. And then there's a part of me that's, agreeing with Johnny that the coach, it is going to come down to those 2-minute coaching, like we saw it last year with the timeout. Like, dude, if you don't know how to call a timeout in Madden, like, I mean, that Lions game was a Madden thing, and it's like right now he's been handed the keys to the Ferrari and all they're telling him is don't crash it. Don't crash it. All he doesn't even have to be here. He doesn't even got to be there.
Well, maybe he doesn't crash it. Maybe Johnny and Joe,
won't.
maybe to that point, he's smart enough at least to use the gas and the brake appropriately, and he knows how to work a clutch. We're going to find out. But, like, to your point and all of your points, he really, especially in the second half of the year, did not look good. And you know something, and let's talk about Hard Knocks just a little bit here. He was probably the biggest loser on Hard Knocks, because he talked about the winners and losers. He didn't look good at all. I mean, other than that last speech, I'll give him credit for that 5 minutes, the FU. I don't, like that whole thing. I meet you at the 50-yard line. That was
right.
Other than that, and again, you can cut that show any way you want, but he did not look great.
It's cheese, and I get they didn't want to let people in. I think they didn't want to let people in because I think they don't have confidence in the head coach. Yeah. I that's what I think.
Love that. Wait, I want to hear Johnny. I want to hear on that. That's a great take. Johnny, what do you think? Is that the same reason? Are you feeling the same thing that they didn't? Well, now he's frozen. Perfect time. Johnny, is that they didn't want to let him in because of the lack of confidence in Saleh?
I mean, that might be true, but I think that's all a smokescreen. I think they tanked the season so they could be on Hard Knocks. So I think all of this, protest us protesting too much, or whatever it's called, that Shakespeare said, is just, to get themselves off the hook that way. Yeah, but I do think it's whether that was the reason or not. It probably is that it was borne out that he's just a boring, blathering, empty suit, right? And the part of it also, you mentioned the Lions game last year with the timeout. He screwed up the timeouts in the first 2 preseason games. The first preseason game at the end of the first half, he didn't call a timeout. And then at the second preseason game, he did call a timeout. And both of those actions screwed the Jets. So that indicates that he's still in control of calling the timeouts, and he's still completely terrible at it.
Well, I have a question for you guys. When we were going for if I may, if that's okay. When we were going through right after the Super Bowl and we were looking at quarterbacks, who was your choice for quarterback? Who are you rocking with? Because obviously, listen, the Aaron Rodgers thing came in March. Okay. So right off the bat, who were you going with? What was your plan? Who was going to be your quarterback for this year before the whole Rodgers thing got involved?
Great question. Johnny, you take it first.
Well, initially it was the combination of either Sean Payton or Brian Flores and Mike White. That was my first choice. If they were gonna hold on to Saleh, then I wanted to get Derek Carr.
Okay.
Yep. Look, this was a lot of like lesser of evils for me because I never believed really that Rodgers was going to come, and at that time I was off of him. White for me as well, to a point. I wanted him on the team. I absolutely wanted him back and being the backup. I wanted Wilson off. I still truthfully do. I think it's a sunk cost at this point. But so really having a guy like him as the backup, because when he was healthy, could really carry the team for a couple of games. And there was that game stretch, and again, go back and watch the tape. 3-game stretch was first-string quarterback level stuff before he got hurt. A lot of people don't want to admit that, but that's the truth. And he's getting paid, and paid very well to be the backup in Miami. And they let go of a high pedigree guy in Bridgewater because they have a lot of faith that he can go down there and step in. And we all know that Tua doesn't exactly have the best history of health. Bringing it back to the Jets, who did I want? I never wanted Carr. Because to me he was always just a middle of the pack guy, and he was not right for New York. I just never felt that he was the one who needed to come in. He was a Sugar Land, Texas guy, by way of Fresno. And even though Rodgers is a Chico guy, in the long run, he feels way more coastal than he does kind of where he's originally from. He went to Cal, school, all of that. Truthfully, if I had to settle on anybody, I would have taken Garoppolo. And I'm not excited. I want you to know, I wasn't excited by that. I would have been excited by what we ultimately paid him to be the guy.
Right.
At some point, he would have been hurt for it, and he would have ultimately bridged, in my opinion, what you could have done and kind of redone this a little bit. The fact that we got Rodgers, that it's turned out the way that it is. I mean, come on. I haven't really seen any of this coming, but I'm glad that he did. How about you? Who was it for you?
Well, first choice, before the Derek Carr situation, I wanted to see Mike White behind a healthy offensive line. Because the stuff that he did show, listen, you get your ribs broken and you're fighting to come back in the game. That's all I got to know about you, pal. And he was making big boy throws. And every game he came in, he threw 300 yards. Second choice was Derek Carr, strictly only because he's never injured. And I think this team only needs – that's why we don't need Aaron Rodgers to throw. We don't need Aaron Rodgers to be 2009 Aaron Rodgers. We just need Aaron Rodgers to be last year's Derek Carr. We just need a solid guy that can stay
with better pre-snap motion,
right?
and
with
all that, and absolutely hitting Carter in the flat and getting Cook out open in space, and certainly handing the ball off appropriately.
And I asked my dad that too. We were driving to Connecticut to see Alice Cooper last year, and it was right when we were talking about Rodgers or Carr, and I said to my dad, and my dad's 58, so I said, who do you want as the Jets quarterback? He said Derek Carr. Derek Carr could at least take a hit. He's like, listen, Aaron Rodgers is a tough son of a bitch, but he's 40. Like the bones aren't holding up like Derek Carr. Like I wanted them to get Stafford when Stafford was available.
I want to address that for a second. I want to address this guy's age, right? Yeah. Because as we could talk about across the line, when you get Dwayne Brown who's 39 years old as your left tackle, very different. Like the athleticism, and obviously you're not going to see Rodgers move the way that he was younger. Correct. But there is something to be said. And by the way, this was another reason I didn't want Carr necessarily because of his age, where he was rounding into a time when you get a little scary at 32, 33 years old for most of these guys. Yes. One thing about Rodgers, one thing that I will say, and I like this about him, is every once in a while, and Brady was like this too, of course, is you get the anomaly. And what I mean by that is once you cross over 35 years old, where it should absolutely see precipitous decline, he had back-to-back MVP, not great season, MVP seasons at 36 and 37 years old. If that doesn't scream anomaly, I don't know what does. So at 39 and then into 40, I'm not so worried about that for him right now.
Well, how long has he been in the NFL?
He played in his early 40s and had a live arm and all of that. And so he was fine. And if you could do all that, I mean, he was an anomaly in that way and got better with the age and all of that. Carr is who I'm ultimately worried. Like a guy like him who's played for as long as he has already, I don't know if he's the anomaly. And when he hits 32, 33, like Wilson, right, who's hitting now and you see that he can't move and his lower body's not the same, that's mostly what happens to most of these guys.
Right. Now, what happened? You got to remember, too, I'll give you something. Aaron Rodgers has been in the league for 18 years, right?
Yep.
He only has 15 years of abuse on his body. He sat for 3 years. So when people sit here and say, well, he's played for 18 years. Well, not really. He played for 15 years.
Yeah.
So he's only got 15 years of abuse.
And he's taken a lot less abuse on his body than most of these guys. He's never been known as a running quarterback, obviously, though he does scramble in the pocket very well. Right. And he's got a hell of a quick release, and he had a great line for most of those years.
Well, the whole thing, too, to tie it back into our offensive line, he's going to mask a lot of it because of his release. He's not going to be sitting, we don't need guys to sit there and block for 5 seconds. That ball's coming in and out. Boom. Right away. You're talking about a guy, there's only certain quarterbacks like this that can read a defense as fast as they can, like the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys. These guys are in a whole different echelon of quarterback. These guys, the way that they process something is completely different than your Derek Carr. And the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers too is he threw for 3,700 yards last year with a broken thumb. Yeah, and half the roster
forget that.
Right,
and still way better than any quarterback. Still 20 some odd touchdowns. I mean, yes, 12 receptions. Which, by the way, for a lot of guys would be kind of normal. For him, was just way out of whack. So, all right, let's wrap this up.
One thing though, you don't need the line to block for 5 seconds. When you've got a quarterback with a quick release like Aaron Rodgers, that's true. But you do need at least a competent, if not a better than that, offensive line to establish the running game. And if the defense is not respecting the running game because the offensive line cannot generate any push, then that is going to denigrate the passing game. I don't care who the quarterback is.
You're going to see push on that right side of that line. AVT and Becton, if he's healthy, you're going to push and move that right side of the line. Nobody needs to worry about that. All right, let's wrap this up with this. Interesting. I mean, obviously, Monday night, we know beyond ludicrous levels of excitement for all of us. Bills by 2.5 over the Jets right now. But more than what jumps out at me is the over-under. Okay. Anyone know what the over-under is right now?
No.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to say it's in the 30s.
Okay. What's your guess? 30 what?
37.
Joe?
25.
25 for the over-under. Like the game's going to be 13-12? That's what we're going with? Okay.
Yeah.
46.5.
Whoa.
46.5. Here's what jumps out at me about that. If you're giving the Bills a 2.5-point favorite and you're saying that the OU is 46.5, what Vegas is saying is this game's going to end up something like 24-22, 25-22 for the Bills, somewhere around there.
I don't see it.
Last year, we split both games with them, right? You remember that. We won one, they won one, right? November 6th, the Jets won 20-17. So they scored 17 on us. And on December 11th, the Bills won 20-12. So they scored 20 on us. Okay.
Right.
The Jets, on average, last year, gave up 18.6 per game in all of 2022. We were the number 4 ranked defense, and that's what they gave up. And will we all agree that we look better on paper this year?
Yeah. On paper, yes.
On paper. Interesting that that Vegas is looking at this and being like, this game is most likely going to go into the 20s for both teams. You got a better offense, obviously, for the Jets. They're going to win by 2.5. But weird that we were less than 20 on our average that we gave up. And to both games last year, when we beat the hell out of them, these guys killed each other. Both teams killed each other in the game on there. Although, again, a little bit later in the year, November, December games, right? Weather was part of the factor. Here we are opening night. Not going to be the same thing. But, I'm intrigued by this. What do we think? This is sucker stuff. I mean, the Jets are going to win this game.
I'm seeing like a 17-13 game because the defenses are both awesome. Yep. Like that's the thing that like the 46 doesn't make sense to me. Their defenses are awesome.
46.5. So you're banging the under hard. And who wins?
I'm going Bills.
Okay.
I'm going Bills. I just think but the Jets have to
come out flat. We only put up 13. Rodgers doesn't have it. He puts up maybe a touchdown or we score 1 touchdown, 2 field goals.
Listen, I get it's a home game, but half of that stadium is going to be Bills fans. So, you got to remember, everyone that's a Buffalo fan doesn't live in Buffalo. They're all here. They're all Jersey people. They're all New York people. There's literally maybe 5 people from Buffalo actually coming down. But I think it's going to be a complete sloppy defensive dogfight game where both defenses are just punching and to the last punch. That's what I think. I don't think it's going to be this shootout. I think Aaron Rodgers, I think the offense is going to definitely be very slow. I think the offense is not good. They already said it today. Nate Hackett said it today. There's going to be a bunch of hiccups. You got to remember that Buffalo has played together for 2 seasons. That offense has played together. The main piece of that offense have played together for the last 3 years. This offense has never played a snap together. Nobody. Dwayne Brown has not even practiced. This guy, they're just throwing him out there. Lakeland Tomlinson, hoping he's not a turnstile like last year. But the main core of this Jets offense has never played together, ever. So I think it's going to be a very slow start. I think the defense is going to have to do majority of the work. So the same thing that they did last year, getting after Josh Allen, and their defense is going to come in right to the left-hand side and put pressure on Rodgers. Both these quarterbacks, to me, are going to have massive amounts of pressure put on them. That's why I think it's going to be a defensive, just dogfight.
Johnny.
Well, first of all, the opposing offenses against the Jets last year, they knew that the Jets offense was so atrocious that they didn't need to score all that many points to win the game. So their game plan was to really run out the clock a lot of the game and not necessarily go for 30 or 40 points. I think that informs the 18-point average. As far as the the Jets' victory over the Bills last year. Josh Allen played hurt, at least in part of that game. I think that impacted things. But I think if you really want to go conspiracy theory, then the league definitely would want the Jets to win this game. They're the media darling and so forth. So I would say that might inform why the over-under is as high as it is, as you point out. I would look for a pick six of Josh Allen or some sort of fumble or whatever that just makes no sense. I think the refs will be in the back pocket of the Jets if, in fact, the league wants the Jets to win.
That'll be the first time in a decade.
He's on to something, though, because last night that right tackle was not even aligned correctly. Okay, I'm looking at the I don't know if you watched
Jawan Taylor, right? To your point, like what was that over and over?
Dude, he looked like a fullback. That's how far back he was. He was never once in a 3-point stance ever, and then he was jumping the ball to the point where Ray Charles can see that he was already going back.
He was like rocking every once in a while as well. He was just kind of like rocking on the line. Let me just move him.
And I call my dad. I'm like, do you see this guy right now? Like, there's no way that this guy is that good at time. He's not even looking at the ball. Like, there was plays, if you look back and replay on it, like he's not even looking at the center, snap it. Like he's just going, and they don't even call it. So I get where you're coming from with the scripted, because I think it's WWE on steroids. To an effect.
Something you two were made for each other. Let's hear some record predictions. What are we looking for, Joe? Or actually, Johnny. Let's start with you, and then I'm going to go, and Joe, you're going to bring us out. Johnny, for the year, where are we ending up?
Well, I mean, look, I'm on record as saying that I think the Jets tanked the season last year. They did everything they could to lose games at the end of the year. That's why I feel like we really were a playoff team last year. We threw it back into the pond. I think this team goes 10-7, loses at the Jaguars in the wild card game. Woody Johnson comes out and says that it was a success, and then we do it all again in 2024.
I'll go. I'm going 11-6. Okay. I say one playoff win, and it'll be whatever happens in the second game happens, but that's my prediction. Johnny knows me. I don't love doing predictions. That's where I'm landing this time.
Me too.
I feel a win. I do feel a winning season is coming. It's a brutal AFC, like you mentioned, Joe. I mean, it really is top to bottom. There's 12 teams that really are competitive. 16 that are there for sure, and two of the bottom four could suddenly surprise you and have close to 500 records. But you see what's out there. I just feel like there's a great mojo moving in. I do feel like we have the horses. I do feel like there's a lot of the pieces on offense, especially a lot more than we're even giving them credit for. These guys are ready to break out. Garrett Wilson is going to see 30% target share. And when you putting up the numbers that he is, and all of a sudden your tight ends are scoring touchdowns, and all of a sudden Cook, and Breece Lightning are crossing that goal line, everybody's going to look around like this is actually working. I see 11-6, some ups and downs throughout the season, but I'm going 11-6 and at least the playoff win. Joe, bring us out.
Okay. I have a 2-part projection. I always say this. Taking into account the first 6 games, that is a gauntlet. If they go 2-4, I can see them going 10-7 and missing the playoffs. Because I think the AFC is so stacked that I don't think 10-7 is going to get it done. If they go 3-3 in the first 6 games, I'm going 11-6.
I like that. 2-4, they're going 10-7. But either way, whether they're sub 500 or 500, which is what your expectation is over those first 6 games, winning record by the end of it, they pull it together. Playoff berth, either way. Oh, no, you said if they're going to miss the playoffs at 2-4, they're going to make it at 3-3.
Yes.
All 3 of us, downtrodden Jets fans like we are, a history of this stuff, we all pick winning records. My friends, this was awesome. Joe Cat.
Thank you, boys. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And you guys, I love following you guys. You guys are fantastic.
Appreciate it, man. We love following you. We'll be back, and we'd happily come on your show anytime you
please. Just anytime you want to do it. We're good.
And tell your dad you will see Aaron Rodgers in the dirt soon enough.
He's already banking on it. Don't worry about that.
Gentlemen, enjoy the weekend. Monday night, enjoy that even more.
Absolutely, boys. Be safe.
Go Jets.